Welcome to another episode of Erik Wait Whiskey Studies, and in this series I've been sharing my trip to the UK, in which I spent 2 days in London, England, and 2 weeks traveling around Scotland visiting distilleries. And I've also been sharing sort of tips and advice on making a trip to Scotland and visiting distilleries based on my experience and the research that I've done. Now, I created a map that indicates all the distilleries that are open to the public. I created a chart which also indicates what distilleries are open to the public and schedules and stuff like that. I tried to create an itinerary for myself which had all the details for the times and the places and the schedules and so forth, right? I spent weeks and weeks planning my trip. But there's always things that are going to come up that are unexpected, in which you got to make a shift in your plans. So it requires a little bit of flexibility as well. So some of the things in this trip that were unplanned that came up. One, I hadn't heard of Lag Distillery on the Isle of Arran. So that was really, really cool to hear about the distillery. It was an addition to my trip. I had actually planned on going to Glengarry Distillery. I actually went to the distillery, and there was essentially a busload of 27 people at the distillery, and they tried to put me in with 27 people in this sort of a mob going through the distillery. I wasn't up for that. So instead, actually originally hadn't planned on going to Glendronach. That wasn't on my itinerary, so I ended up going to Glendronach. So it all works out. With every little mistake, every little unexpected change, it's always worked out for the benefit. Serendipity definitely seems to travel with me to Scotland. So a couple distilleries that I went to that I wasn't originally planning on, as previously mentioned, was Glendronach. Another one was Tullibardine. So after visiting Scapa and Highland Park on Orkney, I then had like an 8-hour drive or so to get back to Glasgow, where I would spend the night and then catch a plane the next day to head back to the United States. So as I'm driving back to Glasgow, I see off the freeway Tullibardine Distillery. So I thought, you know what? It'd be good to stop, take a break, do a walk around, visit one more distillery. So and I was really, really glad I did, because I had an excellent time at Tullibardine Distillery, had a great tour, and I really like the whiskey. So before I get into this one, this is one that I actually bought here in the United States. I tasted at the distillery, but I bought it here in the United States. Before I get into this, here is my tour of Tullibardine. Alrighty, so a lot of tours in Scotland are conducted by very young people. The drinking age in Scotland is like 18 years old. So your tour guide might be an 18, 19-year-old who doesn't have a lot of experience in Scotch whiskey, and maybe they're just sort of following a script. However, the gentleman that I had giving me the tour around Tullibardine Distillery was a really nice, fine old Scotsman that I really liked interacting with. And I wanted to make sure that I pronounced the name of the distillery correctly. So I asked him, how do you pronounce the name of the distillery?
Tullibardine.
We then tasted 3 whiskeys, and he gave me one, actually, a mini to take home, and then I bought one when I got home. The first was the Tullibardine Sovereign, which is aged in a bourbon cask. Is bottled at 43% alcohol by volume and sells for about $40 here in the United States. And he was kind enough to give me a little sample to bring home. The second one we had was the 20-year-old, which is bottled at 43% alcohol by volume, aged in first fill bourbon cask. The cheapest I could find is about $130 here in the United States, but may also go for all the way up to about $150. The third sample that I had is one that I really liked, and so I bought one when I got home, is the Burgundy cask finish. It was bottled in October 14, 2013. It was finished for 12 months in a 228-liter red Burgundy wine cask from Chateau de Chasson, Montrachet. The 220 is named for the number of liters in the red Burgundy cask that it spent the end of its maturation in before bottling. It is bottled at 43% alcohol by volume. So we're talking about a red Burgundy cask. We're talking about Pinot Noir. There are several different grapes that are grown in Burgundy. Namely, the big red one is Pinot Noir. The big white wine is Chardonnay. There is a very, 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 very small amount of Sauvignon Blanc. There's also another grape called Aligote. But basically, when you're talking about white Burgundy, you're talking Chardonnay, and you're talking about, for red wine, you're talking Pinot Noir. Alrighty, so let's get into this. So like a lot of other red wine cask finish whiskeys, this has a slight red tinge to it. It's golden, sort of a golden amber, but there is a slight red tinge to that. On the nose, medium intense aromas of, I get chocolate covered cherries. For me, every time I've had a red Burgundy or Pinot Noir finished Scotch whiskey, I get the chocolate covered cherry notes. Loads of vanilla, some white flowers, a little bit of cinnamon and baking spices. It's almost like a cherry liqueur on the nose. All right, on the palate. It's a little bit sweet, just a little bit. Very silky, very soft on the palate. What you get up front is the same thing you get in the middle and for the most part in the finish. Sweet chocolate covered cherries, vanilla, cinnamon, nutmeg, baking spices, a little bit of oak, but it has a fairly lengthy finish. This is a delicious whiskey all the way through. It's not the most complex whiskey. It doesn't have a lot of change. It does not have a lot of variation, from start to middle to finish, right? But it's a really good, solid whiskey, and I really, really, really like it. There are sometimes you're just in the mood for this profile, whether you're going for a Longrow Red, right? Or perhaps you're going for something from Glenmorangie, because they do nice red wine finished cask whiskeys, or in this case, in this Tullibardine. So Tullibardine is another distillery that I think sort of focuses and specializes in wine cask finished whiskeys. Alrighty, so I really know what I give this in terms of score. I really, really like this one. I'm boarding between 88 and 89. What would I need to get it over 89 into the 90s? A little bit more complexity, a little bit more oomph in flavor, and a lot more developed from the front to the mid to the finish. It's just a little too simple. It's not as complex as I would want something to be in that 90 range. But other than that, it's still a very, very, very nice whiskey. I've tried this with a little bit of water, and it's really, really nice. I've tried it on ice, and it's really, really, really nice. So if you want to put a cube in there, it doesn't kill it. It still performs really, really, really well. Alrighty, so this was my last stop before heading back home from my trip to Scotland. And we're heading into the end of 2019. I'm looking into 2020. I don't know if I will return to Scotland in 2020. Potentially, I might. I've also been looking at going to Ireland and other things, but we'll see how it goes. Alrighty. If you have followed me along in my journey through Scotland, I want to thank you very much. If you have subscribed to this channel, I want to thank you very much. If you like watching my videos, but you have yet to subscribe, I would greatly appreciate it if you would subscribe. Give this video a thumbs up and share with your friends on Facebook, Twitter, and other social networking channels. And until next time, Slanjuvat. Hey, if you like my review, be sure to check out these other whiskey videos.